You know that moment when someone just stops talking? And suddenly you feel this weird urge to fill the space? Yeah, that's not you being rude or anxious for no reason. Your brain is literally freaking out a little bit. Silence triggers something primal in our psychology that makes us uncomfortable. But here's the thing. Not everyone experiences it the same way. Some people vibe with quiet, others panic. Today we're exploring why your brain treats silence like an uninvited guest. Let's start with something basic. Silence feels loud when you're not used to it. Your brain evolved to be constantly scanning the environment for danger. Back when our ancestors lived in the wild, quiet actually meant something bad was happening. Maybe a predator, maybe a threat. So your nervous system learned to get nervous in silence. Fast forward to today, and you're sitting in a coffee shop with dead air between you and someone. Your body doesn't know it's safe. There's this psychological thing called the social norm. Basically, our culture has decided that constant conversation is the baseline for being normal and friendly. Silence gets weird super fast. After like 5 seconds, people start feeling like something's wrong. Either you're mad, or they're boring you, or the friendship is dying. We learn this from movies, from our families, from hanging out with friends growing up. Talking equals connection. Silence equals rejection. It's deeply wired. Now here's where it gets interesting. People who hate silence usually have something in common. They tend to be more anxious baseline. Their minds run fast. They think a lot. And silence feels like stepping into a room where all their thoughts suddenly become really loud and impossible to ignore. So they talk to escape that internal noise. It's like using conversation as a remote control to change the channel on their own brain. Psychologists call this intolerance for uncertainty. When you don't know what someone's thinking in that silence, your brain fills in the blanks. Usually with worst case scenarios. They hate me, I'm boring, I'm weird. Your imagination becomes a horror movie director. And talking? That's your way of getting real-time feedback. Are they still interested? Do they like me? You're literally using words as a security blanket against your own catastrophic thinking. But it's not all in your head, weirdly enough. There's actual neuroscience here. Your autonomic nervous system has 2 modes. Sympathetic, which is like your fight or flight pedal, and parasympathetic, which is your chill mode. Silence can accidentally trigger the sympathetic mode in anxious people. Your heart rate goes up. Cortisol increases. Your body physically feels threatened. Talking acts like a pressure release valve. It brings your nervous system back down. So you're not being annoying, you're self-regulating. Here's something wild. Attachment style plays a huge role in this. If you grew up with parents who were emotionally available and responsive, silence probably feels fine to you. You know people care, even without constant words. But if you grew up with distant or inconsistent caregivers, silence might feel like abandonment. Your inner child is like, are they still there? Do they still care? So you talk to confirm the connection still exists. Let's talk about dopamine for a second. Your brain loves stimulation. It loves novelty. It loves input. Silence is the opposite of that. It's boring stimulus-wise. People who are more dopamine-seeking in their personality literally need more external stimulation to feel normal. Conversation provides that. It lights up your brain. It's rewarding, so someone who silence hates isn't necessarily broken, they just have a nervous system that craves more input to feel balanced and engaged. Social media and constant connectivity made this way worse, by the way. We're living in an era of permanent communication. There's literally no silence anymore, unless you force it. So if you're someone who already struggled with quiet, now you've got a decade of conditioning that silence equals isolation. Your phone buzzes, your brain gets a hit. Silence feels like withdrawal. We've basically trained ourselves to be uncomfortable with our own minds. Now here's the kicker. Some people use silence discomfort as a social strategy without even realizing it. Like, if you're someone who talks a lot, you control the conversation. You set the tone. You decide what gets discussed. Silence takes that power away. Suddenly you're equal. You have to listen too. You have to be vulnerable too. So on some level, talking constantly can be a way to avoid that power shift and stay in control. But let's be real. Sometimes it's just about feeling accepted. Humans are fundamentally social creatures. We need to know we belong. Silence can feel like social rejection. Because in evolution terms, being kicked out of the group meant death. So your nervous system treats silence like a warning sign. When you talk and the other person responds, your brain gets confirmation. You're safe, you're wanted, you're part of the tribe. That's powerful stuff. Here's a psychological concept called negative reinforcement. Basically, whenever you talk, the uncomfortable silence goes away. So you learn that talking equals relief. Your brain says, hey, this works, and you do it more next time. It becomes a habit loop. Discomfort triggers talking. Talking removes discomfort. Repeat forever. Now you're someone who can't stand silence because you've literally trained your brain that it's an emergency situation that requires talking. Now let's flip this. People who are comfortable with silence usually have something different going on. They tend to have better emotional regulation. They're more secure in their sense of self. They don't need constant external validation. Their inner monologue is interesting enough to them. They're cool with solitude. They grew up in environments where silence wasn't threatening. Their nervous system learned that quiet equals safety, not danger. Lucky them, honestly. There's also this thing called metacognition, which is basically thinking about your thinking. People comfortable with silence tend to be better at this. They notice their thoughts without judging them. They're not threatened by their own mind. They can sit in stillness and observe what comes up. People uncomfortable with silence are often running from their own thoughts. They're like, I don't want to be alone with my brain right now. So they create noise. Gender and culture matter too, surprisingly. In some cultures, silence is deeply respected. In others, it's a red flag. In some families, conversations overlap and interrupt constantly. In others, people wait their turn. If you grew up in a high communication environment, silence feels abnormal. If you grew up in a low communication environment, you learned it's totally okay. We're not born uncomfortable with silence. We're trained into it by the people around us. Let's talk about introversion versus extroversion for a second. Introverts literally recharge through silence and alone time. Their nervous system is more sensitive to stimulation, so they need quiet to regulate. Extroverts recharge through social interaction and stimulation. Quiet feels depleting to them. This is physiological, not a personality flaw. So if you hate silence, you're probably more extroverted. That's not bad. It just means you need different things to feel balanced than your introverted friends do. Here's something powerful. When you understand why silence bothers you, you can actually change it. Like, once you realize you're using talking as anxiety management, you can practice just sitting with the discomfort for 5 seconds longer. It's genuinely hard. Your instinct will be to speak immediately. But the more you practice sitting in silence, the more your nervous system learns it's safe. Discomfort is literally just information. It's not danger. There's also value in learning to be comfortable with silence, by the way, not because there's anything wrong with being a talker, but because silence teaches you something. That your worth isn't dependent on constant performance. That you're enough without filling every gap. That listening is actually powerful. That sometimes the best response is no response. Silence is like a superpower once you stop fighting it. It's confident, it's rare. So what's the takeaway here? Your discomfort with silence isn't a personal failure. It's your nervous system doing what it was trained to do. It's your brain trying to keep you safe based on past experiences. It's your attachment style, your dopamine needs, your cultural background, all mixing together. The cool part is, once you understand this, you can work with your brain instead of against it. You can build tolerance. You can rewire. Next time you feel that urge to fill the silence, just pause for a second. Notice it. Ask yourself why. Are you anxious? Do you need connection? Are you uncomfortable in your own head? That awareness alone is massive. You don't have to fix anything immediately. Just knowing the why gives you choice. And choice is everything. Because once you understand your patterns, silence stops being an enemy. It becomes your teacher.